It's Black History Month, and this year on Fridays, I will be focusing on some Black DC superheroes. Last week, I talked about Black Lightning and how his show was really important for representation on TV. Today, I'm talking about Cyborg. Who is Cyborg? Cyborg started out as a teenager named Victor Stone, who was incredibly smart and very athletic. He gets into a horrible accident that changes based on what version of his origin story you're reading. And his father, a brilliant scientist, saves him by making him into a cyborg. He's like half man, half machine. The character was created by writer Marv Wolfman and artist George Perez. It first appeared in an insert preview in DC Comics Presents number 26, October 1980. George Perez wrote and drew a Wonder Woman series. I actually own it. I'm just too lazy to get up and go get it. Cyborg has made many appearances outside of the comics. In DC Super Friends, The Joker's Playhouse, he's voiced by Phil LaMarr, whom you all know from Mad TV. In Justice League Doom, he was voiced by Bumper Robinson. You remember last week's video, he also voiced Black Lightning. In Lego Batman, the movie, DC Superheroes Unite, he's voiced by Brian Bloom. Okay, y'all definitely do not remember him as Dusty from As the World Turns. Excuse me, but why is Dusty voicing Cyborg? Like I really had to find this out during Black History Month? In Justice League, The Flashpoint Paradox, he's voiced by Michael B. Jordan. Okay, Killmonger, back on track. In Justice League War, amongst other Justice League films, he's voiced by Shamar Moore. Y'all may know him as either Hondo from SWAT or as the love of my life. In JLA Adventures Trapped in Time, he's voiced by Avery Kidd Waddell. In DC League of Super Pets, he was voiced by Daveed Diggs. Y'all may know him from Hamilton. In Justice League, RWBY, Superheroes and Huntsmen, he's voiced by True Valentino. In the Superpowers team, Galactic Guardians, he's voiced by Ernie Hudson. Winston from Ghostbusters. In the 2003 Teen Titans series, he was voiced by Carrie Payton, who you may remember from last week, who also voiced Black Lightning. In Mad TV, he was voiced by Hugh Davidson. In Robot Chicken DC Comics Specials, he's voiced by Abraham Benrubi, who y'all definitely don't remember as Larry Kubiak from Parker Lewis Ain't Loose. I didn't even know that was his name. Why is he Cyborg? In the new Teen Titans episode Lightning Round, he's voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson. For a second, I was scared that it was Kramer, but no, y'all, he's Black. In Young Justice Outsiders, he's voiced by Zeno Robinson. In Doom Patrol, he's portrayed by Jovian Wade. On Smallville, he was portrayed by the late Lee Thompson Young. You might have known him as the famous Jet Jackson. And in the DC Extended Universe, he was portrayed by Ray Fisher. That was a lot of appearances. The character is very popular, which is why I'm baffled by his treatment from Warner Brothers. But more on that later. So I mentioned that the late Lee Thompson Young portrayed Cyborg on Smallville, which, as you know, is one of my favorite shows. They had built up a young Justice League with teenage reversions of Cyborg, The Flash, Aquaman or Alan Ritchson from Reacher, the Green Arrow or Justin Hartley from This Is Us, Black Canary, and Clark Kent, of course. The famous Justice episode starred all of them except Black Canary. Before I talk about Ray Fisher and all of his trials and tribulations as Cyborg, let's get back to those non-Black cyborgs. So I looked up George Perez's art of Cyborg, and he's always been Black, but somehow his voice actors weren't. I mean, I should be surprised at the handling of a character so popular that his appearances are almost too numerous to name. But then we all know the story of Ray Fisher. So in 2017, Zack Snyder was removed from the Justice League movie. They used the excuse of the horrible thing that had just happened to him, his daughter unaliving herself. But really, they just wanted to get rid of him. I'm not really a fan of Zack Snyder, and although I thought it was terrible how they got rid of him, I was excited to see what Joss Whedon would do. He did the Avengers movies and, the Buffy the Vampire Slayer series. Little did I know that Joss Whedon's on-set treatment of the cast and crew was gross, abusive, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable. And that's a direct quote from Ray. So to start, before Snyder was basically fired, he had taken the time to have Fisher talk at length to Chris Terrio, the screenwriter, about Cyborg. They felt with a white director and a white writer, it was very important to get the portrayal of the first Black superhero in the DC film universe right. They felt like the heart of the Justice League film was Cyborg's story arc. So Whedon took over and all of that was gone. He completely cut out Cyborg's story and replaced it with ass shots of Wonder Woman. Fisher knew there was no way he was going to get his story arc back, but he decided to focus instead on pointing out the problems with the characterization of a Black character. Even though he specifically asked for notes, Whedon told him he don't take notes from nobody, not even Robert Downey Jr. I'll bet you $1 million he didn't speak to Robert Downey Jr. the way he spoke to Ray Fisher. Oh, and Geoff Johns, who up till now I actually had respect for, actually told Fisher they couldn't have an angry Black man in the Justice League. They wanted to brighten up the characters of all 6 heroes. And he suggested to Fisher to be less like Frankenstein and more like Quasi-Frickin' And he even told him not to stand up straight, but to take on a posture that Fisher described as servile. They literally wanted this man to shuck and jive. Fisher talked about how they bullied him into saying the nonsensical catchphrase, "Booyah." One of the people even said to him, "What if my boss's child wanted to see Cyborg say the line and we don't have the tape?" Like, fool, are you really basing decisions of $1 billion franchise on the whims of a Nepo baby? Are you freaking serious? So Fisher said the line and it ended up in the movie. Booyah. And I'm sure it was probably mocked by everyone who saw it. I'm not going to rehash everything Whedon and Warner's did to Fisher over the course of the production, but I will say this. Fisher wasn't the only person who was targeted. Gal Gadot and Jason Momoa had issues too. The woman and the only other person of color. Gal tried to have continuity in her character's actions from Wonder Woman to Justice League, which was a reasonable concern. People like me would have heavily judged her character for being uneven. Side note, I just have to tell this story about Geoff Johns, who I'm starting to dislike greatly. He gave a note about a Black woman character on Krypton and her hair changing from one day to the other. A Black woman writer told him that Black women's hair can change often like that. It's a Black thing. Do you know this fool said, "No, it's not"? Excuse me? Who the hell do you think you are? So Whedon verbally abused and bullied the cast of Justice League. I basically read an article in the Hollywood Reporter based on Ray Fisher's story. He didn't want to get in too deep into other people's stories. Though, being an actual news publication, they got as many quotes from as many people as they could, including Geoff Johns' representation, who kept excusing his racist behavior by saying, "He's not a racist, I'm a person of color." Or, "He's not racist, he's responsible for bringing Cyborg into the Justice League." Or, "He's not racist, he was married to a Black woman and an Asian one too." All the non-Black Cyborg voices starting to make sense now, huh? After the movie was released, Fisher went public with his dissatisfaction with his experience through that once wonderful app, Twitter. After his character was removed from the Flash solo movie, "I Stand with Ray Fisher" began to trend. Eventually, Zack Snyder got to do his own special cut of the Justice League movie, but the Cyborg solo movie was dead in the water. It helped that Me Too had happened and all the gross stuff that Joss Whedon had done to Charisma Carpenter on the Buffy and Angel had came out.
Oh, I appreciate it.
When I saw 20 years later that the same person was doing the same things, I had met Ray at a con. We became very good friends through a con.
In the beginning of Fisher speaking out, people tended to believe that he was just whining. But as time went on, they realized that a major injustice had occurred. And when I saw Zack Snyder's Justice League and saw how Cyborg's story had been completely cut out, yeah, I always stood with Ray. But for a moment, I stood with Zack too. Just a moment. If you want to read Ray Fisher's complete story as told to The Hollywood Reporter, the link to it will be down in the description below. So, do you think Cyborg has been robbed over and over again? Do you hope James Gunn will do a Cyborg movie? Let me know in the comments below. Come back next week where I will talk about more DC characters. If you like my videos, please support my channel by subscribing or donating through Ko-fi or Cashapp. Or you can purchase merch related to my fantasy novel or just buy my fantasy novel, The Fairy Princess. And let's continue the conversation in the Fairy Princess Facebook group. All links in the description.